Most of us have been working all of our lives and paying into the Social Security system. I've been paying over 40 years now, some of you probably 50 years. But when it's our turn to draw those benefits, we want to get the very most that we can get. But unfortunately, if we do not take at the right time, those benefits can be reduced as much as 35%. In this video, I'll explain why. All right, I want to begin with this particular scenario, and we'll look at another scenario as well. But I want to start with this one here. That means taking early, taking less. And what I mean by that is if someone takes early, that means they take before their full retirement age, they are going to get less money. So let's first off talk about full retirement age. Because again, we can take our Social Security as early as 62. Obviously, that is early. That means before we hit full retirement age. Or we can take after our full retirement age, and then of course, then we're going to get more in our checks. All right, but we take early, we take less. So let's talk about deciding what our full retirement age is, because you need to know exactly what the month and year will be. And so let me graph this out for you just real quickly, because I want this to be real clear in your mind. Anyone born between 1943 and 1954 has a full retirement age of 66 even. But after 1954, the government began to add 2 months to every year's for people's full retirement age up until 1960. All right, and so if you're born in 1955, your full retirement age would be 66 plus 2 months. If you're born in 1956, they added 4 months. In 1957, 66 plus 6 months. 1958, they had 1958, they had 8 months. 1959, they're going to add 10 months. And then in 1960, thereafter, we have a full retirement age of 67. Now, I'm going to use me as an example. I was actually born in 1961. My full retirement age is 67. So in this video, I'm going to use me as an example. But what I want to do just real quickly is I want to clarify for everyone that is adding these months how to do that. So let's just say someone is turning 65 today. I'm shooting this video. Today is 4/12 of 2024. And let's suppose someone's turning 65 today. They're Medicare eligible. And so that means they were born 4/12 of 1959. And again, they're turning 65 today, but when will they hit their full retirement age month and year? Well, we have to add 66 to this, so we know they're going to have their 66th birthday, 4/12 of 2025, but not full retirement age yet, because again, we got to add that 10 months to it. So here's how we count that out. We start with April, and we're going to start counting now. May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So 2/1 of 2026, someone that had a birth date of 4/12/1959 adds 66 and 10 months, it would be 2/1/2026. So that means if they were to take early before that full retirement age month and year, they'd take less. If they take after that, of course, they would get an increased amount. All right, so I just want to make sure we're clear on how to calculate full retirement age. Now let's break down this statement, take early, take less. Let me show you how it works. All right, so here's the two implications that occur when we take early. Number one, we're going to get more checks in our lifetime. Obviously, if I start taking at 62 and I live to be 80, I receive Social Security for 18 years. If I take at age 70 and I live to be 80, I only get a year 10 years worth of Social Security checks. So it just stands to reason. If I take early, I'm going to get more checks. However, what also is going to happen, I'm going to get less money in those checks. And that's always the question. None of us really know the longevity of our life, but if we take early, we get less, we get more checks. Okay, so let's break this down and let's look at actually the math that's a part of this taking less money if we take before our full retirement age. Now keep in mind this, I'm going to use my full retirement age of 67, remember, because I was born in 1961, so I have a full retirement age of 67. So as I get into the actually math of the Social Security, I do want to teach you real quickly how Social Security decides upon our benefits. So let me explain. So what they do is they take our top 35 years of earnings, the very top. So if you only have 25 years of earnings, you have some zeros in there because they're going to count 35 years. If you have 45 years, they're going to take the top 35 years. Now, what they do with all the years that we worked prior to turning 60, all those years, they're actually going to apply those years to an index. Well, why is that? Well, because the money I made 25 years ago looks differently in dollars and cents today, so they're going to inflate that up because that's what's happened. So they applied a wage index to all those earlier years up to age 60, and they were going to bring those up to current dollars. So they index it up, and then they take that total amount, and this is what is called our lifetime earnings. Our lifetime earnings. Okay, now, before I started the video, I did a little math to kind of make this simple. But let's say we have lifetime earnings of $2,520,000. Okay, $2,520,000. So they take our lifetime earnings and then they divide that by 420 months, right? Top 35 years. Okay, then this gives us a number that's very important, and it's called their average index monthly earnings. So again, 420 months average, indexed up because of inflation. So that's what we made. Now, 2,520,000 divided by 420 actually gives us an average index monthly earning of $6,000. All right. Now, they take that $6,000 and they apply that to a formula. All right. Now, watch this. The formula, they call these bend points. Bend points. They call it that because when you look at this formula on a graph, it's bending. All right, so we have these bend points. So what that simply means is they take the first $1,174 and we get 90% of that. Then they take anything in between $1,174 and $7,078. And by the way, these numbers adjust up a little bit every year. And anything in between here, we get 32% added into our Social Security check. Now, if I have anything above this 7778, anything in here, a lot of people don't, but if you did, then we get 15% of that amount of money, whatever it would be in there. So they take those three and they add those together. Now, I've done the math in advance, but someone that had average monthly earnings of $6,000, this calculates out to be a Social Security check in the amount of $2,600 and some change. We'll leave off the change. $2,600. So I got 90% of the first $1,174, and then the difference here of that $6,000, which would have been $4,000 and some dollars. I got 32% of that, and of course this had nothing because I was below the $7,000. But my point is, I had this $2,600 is the amount. Again, I left off the pennies, and this is called my primary insurance amount. Got it? Primary insurance amount, PIA. But what this also means is this is my full retirement age amount. All right? So this is what I'm going to get in my Social Security check. If I go to 67, I will get $2,600. Now, I'm not saying this is my math at all. I'm just saying to you, if this is what I made, average monthly earnings applied to the bend points, that's going to be my check. So here's my point. If I take before that, I'm going to take less. If I take after that, I'm going to get more. They'll add to my primary insurance amount or they'll take away from that. Okay, so let me give you another example. Hey, if you found this video helpful and if you want to see more Medicare information just like it, then go below, right below the video, and you can give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe to our channel. And every time I put a new video, which is about 2 every week, you'll be notified of that video, and others just like you who need this vital information will get it as well. All right, so what we said was my full retirement age is 67. My primary insurance amount in this example was $2,600 and some change, okay? So what happens? Well, I know if I take it 67, that will be my amount. I get my full PIA. But if I take 1 year early, so I take it 66, I'm going to lose 6%. If I take it 65, I lose 12. I take it 64, I lose 18. I take it 63, I lose 24. And if I take it 62, sorry for the crowdedness here, I'm going to lose a full 30% in my benefit. So you can see for every year I lose 6%. Now just so you know, if I'm in between the years, it's actually a 0.5% a month. But just for teaching purposes, I just rounded up. But it truly is a 0.5% a month because you can take it any time. So if I just took 1 month early, I would lose a 0.5%. Take a full 12 months, I'm going to lose 6. You got the point. All right, so again, I'm going to get more checks if I take early, but I'm going to lose less. So let's do the math on this. So we said my full retirement age benefit is $2,600, but if I take it 62, I'm going to lose 30%. So let's look at the math on that. 2,600, and I lose 30%. I'm going to lose $780, so my check is going to be $1,820 a month instead. So the difference was $780 that I gave up. So let's see then kind of the math behind this and see when this begins to be something that's detrimental if I take early. All right? And so the way we would do that, if I did take it 62, that means I have 60 months of that cash coming into my bank account, right? So I take 1,820 times 60 months, and that's going to give me $109,200 in my bank because I took early, right? I'll get more checks. So what's my break even? Well, I got about $780 that I gave up, so I take the 780 into that, and that gives me 140 months. 140 months, put that into years, is going to give us 11 years and 8 months, okay? Which means what? Which means if I were to live, let's just call it 12. If I live to be 78 and 8 months, 78 and 8 months, okay, on. If in other words I live beyond that, then I would be then saying, wow, I sure wish I had that $780 now. But if I were to pass away before that, taking early ends up being a good decision. Of course, we don't know when we're going to pass away at all. But my whole point is when people take early, yes, they're going to give those checks longer, but if they live a longer life, then they may come to regret that decision. All right, and so we want to make sure we know that's what we gave up. Again, we had that money in our bank account, but again, our break-even point is going to be just right there at about 12 years. So if I live beyond that, then we may regret that particular decision. Now, I want to clarify something. What I just taught you all had to do with retirement benefits. Retirement. That means that I am drawing benefits off of my own record. And so when I talk to you about the penalties here, 6% a year, 0.5% a month, that's going to be accurate for retirement benefits, but it's also accurate for survivor benefits. Survivor benefits as well as ex-survivor benefits, drawing from a spouse you were divorced from that died. Ex-survivor and survivor benefits, the penalties are going to be the same because anytime I take a Social Security benefit, whether that's retirement or survivor or spousal. Now spousal, I'm going to do that, I'm going to teach you that next. That's even a greater penalty. But my retirement benefits taken early or my survivor benefits, someone died, my spouse died or ex-spouse died, if I take those benefits, then this is going to be the penalty that I'm going to incur. Alrighty? And so we just want to make sure that when we take early, we're going to be penalized for that. We live a long time, may come to regret it. All right, let's look at another aspect. Remember we said that this particular formula I just taught you applied to people taking retirement. So basically we learned it's 6% a year and it could be as much as 30%. And this also applied to people that are taking survivor. Now I want to explain something about survivor as well as ex-survivor benefits. Survivor benefit means that you were married to someone, and if you were married to them while they died while you were married, your marriage only had to last 9 months or longer, and you're eligible for whatever they were eligible for at their death. Now, if you take that before your own full retirement age, again, that's when the penalties are going to be applied. Now, if it's ex-survivor benefits, here's the way that works. That means that you were divorced and then they passed away. So how could you go back and draw those benefits? Well, if you're married to that person, listen to this, for 10 years or longer, and we got to prove it with a divorce decree as well, and then you divorced and they died, but you did not remarry prior to the age of 60, then you can actually draw from that spouse that you were divorced from that has passed away. Now, if you remarried prior to the age of 60, you can't do that unless that second marriage ends in death or divorce. Then you can go back. But a remarriage, again, is going to annul that. All right, and so that's how we get ex-survivor benefits. 10 years of marriage, couldn't remarry prior to the age of 60. All right, so we're clear on survivor. So penalties apply. Now what I'm going to talk about is spousal. Spousal, because what you're going to see is that the spousal benefit is actually a greater penalty than that 6% a year, 0.5% a month. All right, and they have a really kind of a strange formula for this, but I'm going to teach it to you. Now, spousal, let's talk about that. Spousal could also mean ex-spouse. Now, there's some rules on this as well. Now, if it's a spousal benefit today that you're taking, as a general rule, what that's going to be, it's going to be 50% of that other spouse that you're drawing benefits from of what their full retirement age benefit is. All right, 50% of that. So in my example, we said I was eligible for $2,600. If my spouse was going to take the benefit, the most that she could get off of me would be $1,300. Now, if I passed away, she could get $2,600. But if I'm still alive, she can get $1,300. Now remember, if she takes before her full retirement age, because her amount's based upon my full retirement age amount, but if she takes it before her full retirement age, there's going to be a reduction, and that's what I'm going to teach you about. All right, now how can she get spousal today? Well, a couple rules. Number one, I have to be taking Social Security benefits. In the old days, didn't have to, but today we have to be taking for our spouse to be able to take benefits. Number two, we had to be married for at least 1 year for her to draw those benefits. And so I had to be taking, she has to be eligible, of course, at least 62, and we have to have marriage that's lasted a year proved by a marriage license. Okay, we're eligible. Now, we also have ex-spouses. The way that works gets a little bit tricky, but again, you had to have been married 10 years or longer. No remarriage prior to the age of 60. If you remarried prior to age 60, you can't go back to that previous spouse unless that second marriage ends in death or divorce, then you can't. All right? So 10 years or longer, and now you're single or you got remarried after the age of 60, you can draw from the ex-spouse. All right? And you have to prove, of course, with the divorce decree that you're married for 10 years. Okay, now here's where it gets tricky. If the divorce is less than 2 years ago, less than 2 years, the spouse you're trying to draw from has to be taking Social Security. Okay? Now, if the divorce is more than 2 years, they don't have to be taking. They can, it's all right, but they don't have to. So if you've only been divorced 1 month and your spouse is taking Social Security, you can draw ex-spouse. But if your spouse isn't taking Social Security and your divorce is less than 2 years, you're not considered to be an independent spouse yet. You're going to have to wait until after the 2-year period or your spouse takes. Okay? So that's the rules when it comes to that. So now let's talk about this spousal penalty based upon this $1,300. Okay? So let's just use my spouse. She was born in 1963. So therefore she has a full retirement age of 67. So we know that if she hits 67 and I am taking my benefit, she would get a full $1,300. All right? But if she takes early, so let's back it up, 65, 64, 63, 62, she is going to take less. But let me show you how this works. It's a very interesting formula. So what they say is if we take 3 years early, that penalty is 2536. 2536, and that equals 8.33% a year for 3 years. So you multiply that times 3, folks, that is 25%. And then these 2 years here, it is 12/32%, which ends up being 5% a year. So if I do that for 2 years, that's going to be 10%. So watch this. So I took early here, it cost me 25%. I took early here, that cost me 10% penalty. So you can see I lost a full, she lost a full 35% if she were to take at 62. Okay? So let's do the math on that. So we have $1,300 and she lost 35%, and that means she lost $455 in benefit by taking early, and her check would be $845. $845. That's what she gave up. Okay, so let's do the math. So she would have a cash flow for 60 months at $845. So let's see what that is. 60 months. That's going to give her a cash flow of $50,700, but she left on the table that $455. So we put $455 into that, and that gives us 111 months divided by 12. It's going to be 9 years and a couple months. Okay, let's just call it 9 years and 3 months. All righty? So that means if she lives to be 76 years old thereafter, then she would have rather had that $455 on her check instead of having that $845. So again, if she expects to live a long time, if she doesn't have to have the cash, it'd be a good decision to go ahead and wait because that penalty is so steep. She lost a full 35%. All right, and so those are the penalties. So we've seen retirement penalty, survivor penalty, 6% a year. We see the break-even points, how to calculate that, and now we see that if we take spousal benefits, it's even a greater penalty, a full 35%. Now let's look at the next option. Hey, if you come to a place where you know you're going to have to make some Medicare decisions pretty soon, the best way to do that is to click up here in this right-hand corner, and you'll have an opportunity to be able to book a call with one of our Medicare guides. All the guides around here I have personally trained, and they truly are professional. They'll answer your questions, and they'll show you different Medicare options to make sure that you're confident in the decision that you make. All right, we'll close this out with this option. I think you'll find this to be interesting as well, and that is if we decide to take later. what happens? We're going to get more money in our check. So here's our bullet points on this. You get less checks if you start at a later time, of course, but you also are going to get more money per check. And for people that feel they'll have a good long life expectancy, maybe their parents live to be 85 or 90, 95, 100 years old, whatever, that may be in their bloodline, they may decide that they're not going to take early, they're going to take later. And so let's do the math on this and let's look at our break-evens as well. Okay, so first off, I do want to talk for sure about break-even because none of us know for sure when we're going to pass away, but if we expect a certain life expectancy, then it could be something that could be a good decision in our financial planning for our retirement years. Okay, so again, let's go back to me as an example. So at 67, primary insurance amount, eligible for $2,600. All right? And so if I take then, I get that full benefit. And by the way, once we start taking it at our full retirement age, if we're still working, there's no earnings test either. So we can make as much money as we want. If I ever take my Social Security before my full retirement age, I can only make so much money. That's called an earnings test. I have plenty of videos on that as well. But my whole point is here, I get my full retirement age amount and I can continue to work and there's no consequence to my Social Security check. But I also have the chance to delay, and we call those delayed retirement credits. And now I can increase my check. And so the way that works is this. If I go to 68, I grew that account 8%. If I go to 69, I grew at 16%. And if I go to age 70, I grew at a full 24%. Now again, just like if I take early, we gave a yearly amount, but it's still by the month. And so this monthly amount is actually 0.67% a month that it will grow. So if I went 6 months, I would have grown at 4%. So again, you don't have to take the whole year. You can turn it on anytime you want, but it's growing at an 8% annualized rate. So let's look at the math on this. So let's say that I go to age 70, and by the way, we never go beyond 70 because we can't grow it beyond that at all. It's just not going to multiply this size. Now, it can grow because of cost of living adjustments, but you should take for sure no later than age 70. All right, so now let's do the math. So I'm eligible for $2,600 at full retirement age, but I delay it, and I grew that 24%. So I grew that an additional $624 a month. So that means now I'm going to get a check for $3,224 at age 70. But what did I do? I gave up 3 years of cash flow at $2,600 a month. So I take $2,600 a month times 36. I could have had in my bank account $93,600. But I gave it up because I was trying to get $624. So we multiplied that in there. And I'll do the math on that. 624 divided by, that's 150 months divided by 12 gives me 12 and a half years. Okay, which means what? I started at 70, but I will not know that is a good decision until I live at least 82 and a half years old. So if I live 83, 80, 45, or up to 90, then I'd be very grateful that I waited and took that additional $624. That's my break-even point. Now, I do want to mention something. This is my plan to wait to age 70. My wife has very little Social Security, stay-at-home mom, just did not, worked hard, but didn't have a lot of money. And so here's my point. I plan to wait to age 70 because even if I didn't live to that break-even point, if I wait to 70 and I pass away, that's what she is going to get. So I may not benefit from those delayed retirement credits, but she could, and she'll probably live a long time. For sure, her mother did. And so the whole point is that's something you may want to do, maybe not just for yourself, but for your spouse if their Social Security balance is actually low. All right? And so as you can see, if we take early, we take less, get more checks. Take later, we get bigger checks, but we got to live long enough to make sure that paid off.